It's been a little while since I've been able to do a microphone review, and the one that I have in-house today is pretty cool. It's one that I've been trying to get a hold of for myself for a little while, but for at least a short while there, it was very difficult to get a hold of. This is the Golden Age D2 microphone. This is only $150. It is a large diaphragm dynamic cardioid microphone, so kind of akin to the Audio-Technica BP1, I want to say it was called, that I reviewed a little while ago. Unfortunately, that was also a loaner from a subscriber, so I don't have that to compare at this point in time, but hopefully my comparisons are consistent enough you can just go between the videos. But I'm pretty excited to check this out. This is on loan from my buddy Technical. I'll have a link to his channel in the description below. Thank you to him for letting me hang on to it for so long to finally get around to making this review. I love doing these microphone reviews, and this one is pretty cool. It comes in a really nice looking box, and it is all metal. It is built very nicely, and it even has a built-in pop filter, which we'll test in a moment. However, I think it desperately needs a shock mount, as every little thing I'm doing on my desk is getting seriously carried into this microphone, unlike most microphones I review. Kind of akin to the Spark, the Ember that I just recently reviewed, where just every little rattle is just rattling this microphone. I'm not a fan of that aspect, but it sounds nice. So this is meant to have a little bit of a larger diaphragm than your standard dynamic microphone, although the actual capsule size is basically identical to my RE20 here, so but it is only $150 for a dynamic mic that actually sounds pretty good. Again, the idea of the large diaphragm is that picks up a little bit more detail and warmth and things like that a condenser might pick up, a little bit more range than your standard dynamic does, and while still having that great background rejection, which makes dynamic microphones great for desktop streaming setups or broadcast setups where you have a noisy background that you can't always just accommodate for with sound treatment. So you've been hearing it here through both the raw audio as well as my Go XLR. I actually have the ability with the Go XLR through their ASIO routing to record this in Audition, both raw and processed at the same time, which saves me a lot of time here. But I have had the presence reduction, I believe it's supposed to be, switch enabled. This microphone has 3 switches on it to customize your sound. And from every explanation that I can find, even though the graphic for this doesn't necessarily make sense, is that by default, this microphone has a 5 kilohertz presence boost on it, which can make you sound a little bit more thin or tinny if you have, kind of a bassy, warm voice like I do, but might actually help boost your presence over top of a kind of boomy background sound or a music bed or something like that. So I've actually had that switch enabled so that it reduces that presence boost, as I felt for me, it gives me a little bit more of that warmth and oomph that I like my voice to have. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off here real quick. So this is how I sound with that switch disabled. Personally, I do think that with the switch enabled sounds better than how it sounds what's considered flat here, but that's just me. It also does have 2 different bass roll-off switches. One is more of a smoother roll-off curve, and the other is more of a harsher roll-off curve, but they are both rolling off the bass. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back in the mode that I prefer, and this is the more harsh bass roll-off. All right, now this is how I sound with the more harsh bass roll-off enabled, so I'm just kind of like getting cut off a little bit more. So in my opinion, it sounds a little bit more flat or like it's missing something for me. A lot of you guys, however, prefer how I sound in my microphone reviews with these bass roll-off switches enabled, so I do like including them in the tests. I, of course, prefer the bass and the oomph, so not everybody does, and I have learned that from the comments, which is why I like featuring this. This is with the harsher mode. Let me switch it to the smoother roll-off curve. All right, so this is how I sound with the smooth bass roll-off curve, which is supposed to be a little bit more pleasing, at least to me, if you're not specifically trying to cut specific frequencies. Like if you're trying to use it to cut out specific, boom or reverb or a hum that is present in your audio, then you kind of want to use the harsher switch. But if you're literally just trying to like smoothly roll off bass, hence the name of someone's voice, I think this is going to be a little bit more pleasing to the ear, at least in many situations. But again, I prefer it left on flat, so I'm going to set this back to that. Again, as always, I will have on screen indicating whether I have post-processing enabled or disabled. And I am using the Go XLR for processing, which has the Midas preamps, which are very, very high quality preamps. So for mics like this microphone or the RE20 or the Shure SM7B, it does not need a cloud lifter or a FET head or an extra mic activator. The built-in preamps are enough. And in fact, using a mic activator can introduce even more hiss to your sound, which is kind of neat. This requires about 5 dB less of gain than my RE20, but it is so about 45 dB of gain in the Go XLR, but it is still a gain hungry mic compared to, your usual cheap dynamic mics. Like, it's so weird to be reviewing this kind of head to head here because it is in a significantly lower class in terms of price for microphones, which is absurd. Like, this thing is so cheap. This may be the best value microphone you can get, because actually my value dynamic microphone that I recommend if you're going to spend a little bit of money is typically the Rode Procaster, which new runs about $250, or at least it did when I got it, which was like 5 years ago at this point. It's probably even cheaper, and getting it used is usually closer to $200. This is only $150 new from Sweetwater. Cannot argue with that value. Now, you may have heard it a couple times. I did mention it's supposed to have a good enough built-in pop filter, but I can still make it plosive. So you might be able to squeeze on a BSW repop on here so you don't get the black one for the RE320. People use them for the high LPR40 and the Procaster and things like that. You might be able to wrap this around there and give yourself a little bit better of a time here. I will, as I was talking about my post-processing settings, I will have my EQ curve and my compressor settings screenshotted on screen just so you can see what those settings actually are. And I'm going to do a quick background noise test here, and then we'll do our basic read, and I'll do it compared to the RE20 on the same settings, and then I'll let you get out of here. All right, as usual, white noise, straight at the microphone, and we're going to wrap around. About a hand's distance away. Okay, enough of that. All right, let's quickly do our normal read versus my Electro-Voice RE320 and cover some specs here real quick. This has a frequency response curve of 50 hertz to 20 kilohertz, a sensitivity of minus 52 decibels. Again, it has those 3 switches, and output impedance of 250 ohms. That's about it. XLR microphone, of course, so you will need an XLR interface. And again, all of this is with that bass presence switch disabled, just because to me that is the best mode for me, so I'm just going to consistently stick with that. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie, 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie, 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. All right, real quick, this is the Rode Procaster. This is the microphone that, in terms of the mid-tier budget recommendation, that I've typically always recommended, and that the Golden Age D2 would actually replace in terms of recommendations. So you can see how it sounds in comparison real quick here, because I really think the value offer here is super compelling. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. This microphone I picked up I believe in 2014 and was my main dynamic microphone up until 2016 when I started getting the Electro Voice microphones in. But in terms of actual mid-tier budget recommendations, I typically recommend the Procaster instead because it's only usually about $200 to $250 and is a much better value and gets you most of the way there, especially if you get some nice EQing going. The sound you can get out of it is pretty competitive to the rest, but I think the Golden Age might have this beat. And that's it. $150, broadcast quality dynamic microphone. Find a way to get a shock mount for it. I haven't actually looked. I'll try to include some screenshots if I see any. You want a shock mount for this of some sort. I don't know if they exist since it has this very specific mounting system, but if you can get something like this for that, you're good to go, because I do not like how much handling noise is getting picked up in this. And it may be this was already used to technical before it came to me, so maybe it's just been beat around the bush a little bit, but otherwise, fantastic value microphone, especially for a dynamic. And this may be my top recommendation for the next tier of microphones. Like at the $50 to $100 range, I recommend the Samson Q2U. For the $150 to $200 range, I may drop from the Procaster down to this microphone. It is that good. But thank you so much for watching. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more tech education, gearhead, mic reviews, things like that. I'm EposVox. Go subscribe on Floatplane where you can get early access to videos, behind the scenes content, all that jazz. This will be going up after I went to CES, so I hope everybody enjoyed the mania of CES content, and I'll see you next time.